piled one on top of the other. I went, albeit briefly, I went to a drawing school here in Florence back in the 60s, run by Signorina Sini, and we were packed like this. We couldn't get away from the easel. We had to use binoculars reversed around so that we could see what our drawing looked like from a distance. Yeah. You tried to back up, of course, you knocked over the easel from the first. So, yeah, so the idea of no women painters is a big misconception, you know. One of my hobby horses, not to spend much time on this. What happened is that in the 1800s, art history, it's a very new discipline, art history. And in the 1800s, it was really promoted by a bunch of misogynists in Cambridge. And they just simply left all the women out. And so subsequent generations then read their books and say, oh, look, there were no women painters. And so then they write their books and there are no women painters. And meanwhile, you walk around Venice, you know, you see all these fabulous altarpieces by women painters. You walk around Rome, you see all these great paintings by women painters. So there were a lot of female professional painters. Now England, surprisingly enough, England was very much into mixed classes, you know. I say surprising because the reputation is that, you know, the English are very prudish. It's absolutely not true. This is the Slade School in London. Men or women, younger or older. Yeah. However, in Paris it was segregated. This is by Alice Barber Stevens. A lot of the American painters, including Alice Stevens, went to Paris to study. I mean, Paris was definitely the best school, or had the best schools in the world at that time. So here you see the women's live class. Here's Marie Bashkirtsev, Russian. Died very young at 22 or 23, and as you can see, she's great. But again, she's painting now the women's life class at Julien's. He was one of the big schools to give classes to women. He charged them more money, which was a bit unfair, but anyway. Here you see the women's class in the States, in the National Academy in New York. Great use of chairs and easels, and this real hunk of a model. Yeah, Americans were much more prudish than the British, you know. So they segregated the classes. I mean, there are reasons. There are valid reasons for it, you know. I mean, very often it was at the ladies' request that they were segregated. They just couldn't stand the cigar smoke and the swearing, you know, in the men's class. Apparently, if you stood at the back, and if your easel was at the back of the men's class, you couldn't see the model for the cigar smoke. It was absolutely pea soup, we used to say in England. You know, it was absolutely opaque because of the cigar smoke. We wonder why they died. Yeah. Here's moving right along. Here's just some examples of work done in these great Italian. I could show literally thousands of these. I'm not going to. This is by Suzanne Herfeld. Again, I tend to choose in this lecture. I tend to choose my examples from the female painters because I really need the world to understand that there were tons of female painters. Just actually flipping back for a moment. Where did their work go? Where did their work go? I cannot believe that all these women were terrible painters. I can't believe it. So where's their work? Now, the 19th century paintings are selling for a lot of money. A lot of money. So if any of you are interested in becoming treasure hunters, it's a valid, it's recognized by most governments, most Western governments, as being a valid profession, by the way, so it's all tax deductible. If you wanted to look up their surnames in the archives and their addresses, trace them down, get into the attics, the cellars, see, you can make a lot of money. There are a lot of great paintings out there that haven't been found. Here's an Italian example by Guy Amos Cassioli. One of the, as we'll see one day when we look at the Italian 19th century painters, Amos Castioli was one of the Purismo school, the Purist school, which centered in Siena. The Florentines tended to be a little more painterly.